In the desolate wasteland, we are the chosen one, the descendant of the Vault Dweller who saved Vault 13 80 years ago. Now, famine and disease plague our village of Arroyo, and with no knowledge left behind to save us. It's up to us to journey through New California in search of the legendary Gek, a device said to restore life to our dying tribe. But with no clue where to begin, we must rely on every stranger we meet, all while a powerful and unstoppable force threatens to wipe out the entire wasteland. Hello everyone, nice to have you. Avrengost here, this time talking about Fallout 2, a post-nuclear role-playing game. It was developed by Black-Isle Studios and published by Interplay Productions in 1998, less than 1 year after the original Fallout. Black-Isle was a big name in the 90s and early 2000s. It was an internal division of Interplay created in 1996, when the first Fallout game was being developed. It created and published games now considered absolute classics in the CRPG scene. You may recognize big names like Planescape Torment, the Icewind Dale series, and the original Baldur's Gate games. It's interesting to know that the first two Baldur's Gate games were published by Black-Isle Studios but developed by BioWare, a name a few of us know, right? More on that in future videos. To those who might be new to the channel, I talk about games after experiencing them thoroughly. I go all in, trying to experience everything the game has to offer, whether it's unlocking achievements when present, or exploring the branching storylines and quests. I strive to speak correctly, but since English is not my first language, I always include subtitles, just in case I mispronounce a word or say something unusual. That being said, I understand that for older games like Fallout 2, there are people so passionate about them that they've been playing them once a year since they were released, and I'm absolutely not trying to compete with them. I did 6 playthroughs of Fallout 2, experiencing ranged, hand-to-hand and social builds, as well as really smart characters with no combat skills at all, leading my companions to the fighting. I've explored small guns, energy weapons and big guns builds, and I've played both good and evil characters. I also did a solo playthrough. This game offers a lot to do. A first playthrough, when you're still unfamiliar with the game mechanics, may take between 30 to 45 hours to cover most of its content. Subsequent runs might be faster. I've played it for a little over 180 hours in total. Fallout 2 can be now bought for real cheap. If you find a sale, you can get a bundle with Fallout, Fallout 2 and Tactics for less than €5 of US dollars. It's definitely worth it. Again, I fully understand there are gamers out there who have played this game 25 times, and I take my hat off to them, but I didn't play Fallout 2 when it came out in 1998. As for the first Fallout, for some reason this series flew under my radar when I was a teen, and I played it for the first time only a few years ago. I'm not entirely sure why. Back in 1998 I was playing the original Baldur's Gate, and I was very much into computer role-playing games. Fallout 2 is an open-world, isometric RPG that some still consider to be peak gaming. The devs took the first Fallout and created a new game using the same engine and systems in an incredibly short amount of time. They managed to add some updates to systems that were overlooked in the original game, and they built a bigger map with a lot more settlements, NPCs and side quests. To me, this game shines in its side missions and world building, expanding on the foundations laid by the original Fallout, though it also features an excessive amount of Easter eggs, jokes and fourth wall breaking puns. It also suffers from some shortcomings clearly due to the very short development time. It can be overwhelming on a first playthrough, so don't hesitate to use a guide or the wiki if needed. The game also comes with a PDF manual that's worth a look, just like the original game. There will be some spoilers throughout the video. I don't think for a 26-year-old game I need to be especially careful about spoilers, but you've been warned. Without further ado, let's dive in. I played the Bethesda Softworks version of this game on Steam, which is a re-release for modern systems. It comes in the 1.02 US version with the high resolution patch and the S.P.E.C.I.A.L 3.2 mod. I believe the GOG version is identical. S.P.E.C.I.A.L is a mod that allows extensive customization of the game, but I only used it for practical utilities like increasing the number of save slots and enabling DirectX 9 support. I aim to play as close to the vanilla experience as possible, using 640 by 480 resolution with black bars. From my experience, higher resolutions, even with the user interface scaled up, made the game assets appear too small. I should also mention the unofficial restoration patch, which fixes numerous bugs and restores unfinished content. I chose not to use it to preserve the original experience. Across my 6 playthroughs and roughly 180 hours of gameplay, the game crashed a couple of times due to memory reference errors, but it was rare enough so not a significant issue for me. Similar to the first Fallout, my recording software had trouble capturing the game properly, causing skipped animation frames and odd rendering of UI elements like dialogues and the inventory screen. I tried multiple recording programs without success. Despite this, the game itself runs smoothly enough. This was purely a recording issue. The game offers the same 10 save slots as the original Fallout, but I recommend using the S.P.E.C.I.A.L mod to increase that number, as the limit was due to hardware constraints of the time, which no longer apply today, and it doesn't really change the overall experience. It's just a quality of life add-on for the player. You can also assign quick saves to F6 and quick loads to F7, but you'll need to rebind them each time you load the hard save. A few more quality of life changes I suggest making in the game's options menu are setting combat speed to the fastest, turning on target highlights to see enemies behind isometric walls, and setting your characters to always run. These adjustments just improve the overall experience. There is a particularly annoying bug I encountered in San Francisco, which I feel is important to mention up front. If you store too many items in your car's trunk, the Chinatown map will crash every time you return to it, where your car is parked. You'll need to replace the map file with the previous version to fix it. It's a known issue, I ran into it due to my hoarding tendencies. The game is full of bugs, likely because of the short development timeline. S.P.E.C.I.A.L mentioned that development started a few months before the release of Fallout 1, given the studio's excitement about the game. However, they had only about 9 months to develop Fallout 2. They even pulled team members from Planescape Torment to meet the deadline, leading to significant crunch time. Tim Kaine eventually left due to the poor working conditions and other personal reasons. He founded Troika Games with other 2 team members and eventually made Arcanum. Regarding the bugs, you'll find many minor ones, but some of the larger ones are quite surprising. For example, dialogue trees can bug out, preventing further conversations, or merchants may offer lower prices if you initiate bartering through a dialogue line instead of using the barter button. One of my companions simply disappeared at one point. It was during the evil playthrough, so maybe Vic sensed something was wrong. I told him to wait, but when I returned later, he was gone for good. The game also features a car for traversing the map, which is much larger than in the first game. However, in certain locations, like vaults, the car will vanish, or in some cases the game counts the car as a companion, affecting your party limit. The most frustrating bug I encountered occurred during a well-known scene where your character sleeps with a couple of women in New Reno. After the fade to black, my companions were invisible but still present. I couldn't interact with them at all. Online sources suggested that repeating the encounter would fix the issue, but it didn't work for me. My character ended up sleeping with the women repeatedly to no avail. I imagine leaving him in a terrible state. In the end, I had to reload an earlier hard save, losing a couple of hours of progress. I believe most of these issues would have been caught by QA if the team had more time to thoroughly test the game. In Fallout 2, as in the first game, you have 3 pre-generated characters to choose from, each representing a different way to play the game. However, you're most likely going to create your own character. I've already talked extensively about character creation in my original Fallout video, so I won't repeat everything here since it uses the same system, and that was a very lengthy discussion. What works in Fallout generally works in Fallout 2. The small guns, lockpick and speech builds, with gifted as a trait, still work very well, and intelligence and agility remain the most important special attributes, giving you more skill points per level and action points per combat turn. You'll probably still aim for the Sniper or Slayer perks at level 24. That said, I would be remiss not to mention that they made some upgrades to these systems, trying to address some of the shortcomings of the first game. For example, Charisma was almost useless in Fallout, but now it determines how many companions you can have at any given time. This limit is determined by your Charisma score divided by 2, rounded down, so Charisma 7 allows for 3 companions, while the maximum, Charisma 10, lets you have 5 companions simultaneously. They also tweaked the Outdoorsman skill. Now, when you pass the skill check while traveling on the world map, you can choose to avoid random encounters or face them anyway. Offering more options is always nice. Originally, the encounter rate was tied to your processor speed. You can imagine how that went on faster machines. Some players reported encountering 3 random events per map square, which is ridiculous. I believe this was patched by popular mods like KillUp or S.P.E.C.I.A.L, though I'm not entirely sure. On average, I had one random encounter every couple of map squares before getting the car, so the issue was definitely fixed, and I didn't adjust an irrelevant option in S.P.E.C.I.A.L. The unarmed skill also received more attention, with dedicated quests and trainers appearing in the early game. The game actually starts with an infamous tutorial area, the Temple of Trials, that some people really dislike because it forces you to fight bugs using only unarmed or melee skills. It's almost like Fallout 2 wanted to emphasize the unarmed skill. That's why I chose to try a full run based on fist fighting. You'll also find a greater variety of weapons and armor, with more choices for all combat skills. As I said, I played an unarmed build and it was fun, though I found it annoying that enemies would flee when injured, forcing me to chase them across the map. And due to the action point system, catching them was not easy. But the dedicated boxing and martial arts quests were enjoyable. The big guns build was also incredibly satisfying, tearing enemies to pieces, sometimes multiple enemies at once, and it was excellent. There are more burst and heavy weapons to choose from, and the Bowser was my favorite. The Charisma and Intelligence build, however, was frustrating. Having companions do the fighting for you seemed interesting at first, but although they don't kill you with burst fire like in Fallout, if you set the proper combat behavior, they still manage to hit and kill each other by mistake. And once you have 4 or 5 companions, they become a mob that ends up hurting each other. While they introduced customizable combat behavior for companions, it's still a bit rough and difficult to manage. Fallout 2 inherits the perks list from the first game, modifying some and adding new ones. Some special ones can be unlocked through specific actions, like the Expert Excrement Expeditor, which you gain by shoveling Brahmin manure 5 times in Broken Hills. For some reason, it gives you a plus 5% boost to the speech skill. Welcome to the nearly infinite set of puns and humor in this game. At the end of the day, you'll probably still aim for perks like awareness, bonus rate of fire, bonus hand-to-hand attacks, action boy or girl, bonus move, more criticals, better criticals, and quick pockets, all while working your way to level 24 for those sweet sniper or slayer perks. Other builds are certainly viable, and I encourage trying them once you have a good understanding of the game. I've tried some of them, but they make the game a bit more challenging. While the maximum level in Fallout was 21, in Fallout 2 is 99. However, unless you plan on grinding a lot, you'll probably finish the game around level 25. The special and skill systems remain the same, but now skills can reach 300. Everything is scaled up a bit. The higher your skill value, the more points you need to spend to increase it by 1%. Most skills aren't worth raising beyond 100%, though some locations or specific quests require higher values to succeed in checks. After finishing the main story, you can keep playing, and a certain NPC will give you the 4th wall breaking Fallout 2 hint book, which allows you to max out your level and skills. To me, this felt more like a debugging tool than something fun or useful, but if you want to explore the post-endgame as a godlike character, it's an option. Speaking of difficulty, the early game can be tough. Enemies have more HPs than in the first game and are generally better equipped. Random encounters still seem to be location-based, but there is more variety, and you can randomly stumble into an easy encounter or an impossibly difficult one for the early game. More on encounters in the exploration section. I'll wrap up this section by saying that Fallout 2 is one of the few games where you can genuinely be a despicable person. While the main story has a somewhat fixed path, many side quests have different outcomes, including some very bad ones that bring pain and suffering to the wasteland. Playing as a good character is generally easier, as is often the case in RPGs, but being marked as a slaver and seeing how the world reacts to that is a meaningful experience. It makes the world feel alive. Exploration is, in my opinion, one of the strongest aspects of this game. Fallout 2 is open world, but some locations unlock only after you received specific quests. You can stumble upon most settlements just by roaming around, and asking for directions from NPCs will add some of them to your Pip-Boy map. Some locations will be too tough to handle right away, so you will have to come back later. A lot of new players find Fallout 2 confusing, but if you play this game without a guide and pay attention to small details and what NPCs tell you, you'll find a mostly clear sequence of things to do revealed through dialogue. This will likely be balanced for your current level. The journal is the same as in Fallout, so if your memory is like mine and isn't great, you'd better take notes while talking to people because instructions on how to achieve listed goals won't be available. The map is larger than the original game, with more mountains, so traveling between settlements takes much longer when going on foot. Eventually you can buy a car, the famous Highwayman, and as long as you fuel it with energy cells, you can cruise through New California in true Mad Max style, accompanied by a kick-ass soundtrack. You can also upgrade the car at a couple of locations to reduce fuel consumption. It increases your outdoorsman skill while traveling, helping you avoid random encounters. This is useful because, again, the map is big, and many quests require you to travel between settlements multiple times. You can also store a lot of your loot in its trunk, but, as I said when I talked about bugs, don't overdo it. There's a funny quest in New Reno, the crime city, where you park your car and it gets stolen immediately. You'll have to track down the chop shop and get your ride back, one way or another. There are tons of special encounters, mostly jokes, like a crashed Starfield shuttle or a group of Brotherhood of Steel Knights behaving like the Crusaders from the Monty Python and the Holy Grail. There are also Easter eggs like the Cafe of Broken Dreams, where original Fallout characters lament cut content. These encounters contribute to the game's endless puns and humor. One way to cheese the game requires knowledge of the world map. You can get to San Francisco relatively early, take the Steal the Vertebrate Plans quest from the Brotherhood of Steel, and unlock the Navarro base on the map. Kill the weak guard at the gas station, enter the base, pose as a new recruit, and steal the Enclave Advanced Power Armor. The rest of the game becomes easy mode. Speaking of settlements, each one essentially represents a faction. Your reputation with each is determined by your actions, and this is tracked on your Pip-Boy. You can be a good person and have great reputation everywhere, or be evil, destroy towns, or pit one against another. Interestingly, there is still a numeric karma value, but it's not very balanced. For example, you can lose 30 karma for blowing up a settlement's reactor, effectively killing the entire town, but you can gain 5 karma for killing bandits on the road who attack you. With a single random encounter, you can balance out the karma loss, and you've just destroyed a town. If you don't go full murder hobo on every person in every town, and do quests for personal gain, you'll end up with a net positive karma. That's why I finished my evil run with positive karma, despite doing terrible things that showed up in the end slides. Some factions conflict with each other, and you can bring peace between them or side with one and destroy the other. You might be well liked in one place but vilified elsewhere. The reputation system is solid, but the karma system, again, feels not very well tuned. Another strong point of the game is its immersion. While Fallout 2 is generally less serious than the original, it gives a more comprehensive portrayal of the wasteland and human nature. Each settlement highlights the particular aspects of human behavior, from racism to segregation, greed, addiction, and more. Fallout 2 is telling you that humans remain the same, even after a nuclear apocalypse. For instance, you come from a small tribal village focused on survival, yet it still has petty squabbles. There are mining towns where mutants and humans coexist, but there's an underground movement to eliminate the undesirables. Other examples include a technologically advanced city where segregation and classism rule, and a crime city ruled by 4 mob families where gambling, prostitution, and drug abuse are rampant. Old maps from the original game, like Vault 13, Vault 15, and the military base, are slightly altered and repurposed by new events. While all of this is phenomenal for world building, it sometimes feels like a patchwork, with different locations stitched together unevenly. There are mechanical and world-building inconsistencies between areas, such as merchants with different inventory systems, or good NPCs reacting to your bad actions in some locations but not in others. It feels like different teams developed different parts of the game without much communication to ensure a uniform player experience. One minor annoyance is that you don't find good merchants until Vault City, and even then, they often don't have enough to buy all your loot. While I understand that merchants' money and equipment are meant to scale with your character, it's still frustrating when you have high-value items and no one can afford them. This makes sense lore-wise in a post-apocalyptic world, but it can be disappointing if you're a player like me and want your money's worth. Regarding combat, it is exactly like in Fallout, with the exception that you can set your companion's combat behavior. You can set options such as when to burst with their weapons, arguably the most important one, and other parameters like when to run away based on their level of injury, what kind of weapon to use, how close to you they should stay, whom to attack, and when to use stim packs. To be honest, the options for distance and enemy engagement felt like they didn't always work properly. Also, while the burst options allows you to instruct them not to spray their guns when you're in the way, they will still happily burst into other companions. They really tried to fix the combat AI that didn't work very well in the original game, and although they added some useful upgrades, it was still not that great. My run with 5 companions was quite frustrating due to the amount of times they killed each other. That being said, you have the usual turn-based combat with the actor sequence not shown to you. You have action points based on your character's agility and perks to spend on movement, attacks, and reloads. Unarmed combat has a wide variety of punches and kicks depending on your special score, unarmed skill, and character level. You always have a primary punch and kick, and you can switch to a secondary punch or kick attack with different costs and effects. It's all nice, but in practice, during my unarmed run, I always use the Haymaker attack as soon as I got it, and when you find the Power Fist, you'll just use it, it's simply stronger. Equipment variety has been expanded since the first Fallout, allowing you to choose between a wide variety of guns, rifles, automatic rifles, submachine guns, new heavy weapons, and so on. You'll find more types of armor too, including a Mark II version of the leather and metal armor, which are more effective versions of the originals. Besides the famous Brotherhood of Steel power armor, you now have the Enclave version, which is stronger, and even an advanced version of that when you reach the last map of the game. This enhanced weapon and armor variety is another strong point of the game, a good addition to the base system of the first Fallout. I had quite a lot of fun with automatic weapons, using the new ones provided. Enemies are a bit stronger though, and as I said before, you might have a harder time at the beginning of the game. They have more HPs in general, and might be quite well equipped even in the first random encounters. There is no shame in running from them, or if you're lucky enough to find 2 factions fighting each other, let them have at it without intervening and loot what remains on the battlefield. It will improve your early game in terms of power and money. So I guess it's lore accurate, you can start role-playing as a scavenger. Now, about the Fallout 2 story. This is the heavy spoilers part in case you're wondering. I wanted to recount the story through one of my runs, the unarmed one, and I took a lot of notes, but honestly, it's too long. This game is quite extensive if you do every piece of content it offers, and it can be played in so many different ways that to keep this video contained, I opted, in the end, to give just a general overview of the main story and to talk about the quests that I lacked the most. The main story is not what makes the game shine, at least for me. The starting hook is, we don't have much time. Crops are failing, cattle are dying, children are sick. Survive these ruins full of giant bugs and this tribe fighter we put at the end for you. If you manage, you'll be the chosen one and we'll have to find a mythical device that will make our lands fertile. To me, all of this was weird for a number of reasons. Then, doing some research, I stumbled upon some resources outside the game itself, like the Fallout 2 official guide. There are excerpts in there from the Book of the Elders, recounting the story of Arroyo, in which it is stated that the choice to lead the tribal life was deliberate. The Vault Dweller wanted a simple, peaceful life for their people, believing the technological superiority of the past led to huge means of destruction, conflict, and war. It was really interesting, and I can understand the reasoning behind it. I just wished you could learn this lore from some source in the game, maybe in Arroyo itself, instead of finding an explanation in an external source. Anyway, motivated by desperation, the Elder sends you on a quest, a matter of life or death for dozens of people, with a very thin clue to follow. All she knows is that a gek is to be found in a vault, and a trader named Vic sold the village a metal flask with a 13 on it. Vic should be in Klamath, a settlement to the east. Go and ask him about the vault's whereabouts, find the holy gek and save all of us. Sounds relatively simple, but Vic will not be in Klamath, obviously. We'll find him a prisoner of some slavers in the Den, another nearby town, and we'll have to free him. He doesn't know where Vault 13 is, he just bought the flasks, plural, from a traveling merchant who now breeds Brahmins in Vault City. In Vault City, the guy says he stumbled upon them during caravan routes, and he doesn't remember which one. We know where this is going. This is a wild goose chase. We'll live 1,000 adventures exploring settlements and asking merchants, casino owners and bartenders if they know what a gek is and where it could be found. A lot of them will answer that geckos are not so hard to find, we can hunt the lizards nearly everywhere, the insult added to injury. We'll eventually find Vault 13, overrun by intelligent deathclaws that mean people no harm. We can deal with them in a nice or a bad way, and eventually get the gek that's actually there. With the device in our possession, we'll run with our car back to Arroyo, only to find out that the Enclave has been there, killing our warriors and abducting our people. Depending on how thorough we've been in our run, we might already know about this organization, but we have no clue why they would be interested in a tribal village. The Enclave is a scary faction, with technology superior even to the Brotherhoods, and they don't mean well, at all. The Brotherhood is nearly absent in Fallout 2, but in San Francisco, one of them will tell us they've been keeping an eye on the Enclave, but they have fallen on hard times and cannot fight them. He tells us about an Enclave base on the mainland and how to infiltrate it. We should steal the blueprint of the flying machines, the vertibirds, and bring them back for the Brotherhood. We may do so or not, but we're infiltrating the Navarro base anyway to steal their technological armor and weapons. We fix a tanker moored in San Francisco Bay and refuel it. We use the Enclave recognition system we stole from Navarro, so the main base won't shoot us on sight, and we dock at an old oil rig, now functioning as the Enclave's main headquarters. In there, we'll find our people and Vault 13 residents too, both taken prisoner because the Enclave wants to use them as test subjects. The bad guys have the F5E virus that they recovered from the base the Vault Dweller destroyed, apparently not so thoroughly. We may know a lot about the Enclave by now, but we can get the full comic book villain exposition of their plans from none other than the President of the United States, because the Enclave is formed by the descendants of a deep state pre-war organization that included high-ranking figures from the government and the military, and they believe themselves to have all the rights to rule what's left of the United States. Too bad they also want to wipe out all the genetically impure humans from the wasteland using the repurposed F5E virus. Now, in a nuked world in which very few had the possibility to live for generations in a Fallout shelter, that means nearly everybody has their DNA at least a bit scrambled. To end their threat, you will destroy the main computer, which will lead to a countdown to another nuclear explosion. On your way out to rejoin your people, you'll face Frank Horrigan, a cybernetically over-enhanced Secret Service presidential bodyguard. There is no convincing the big bad evil guy to kill himself this time. You have to fight him anyway, but you can do it in a couple of ways. Head-on, he's really strong, with 999 HPs and wielding an end-boss plasma gun. But you can convince some other Enclave members to fight him in exchange for a way out of the exploding station. And if you made the president full of holes and stole his ID, you can set all the turrets on the main hall to shoot Horrigan. Essentially, you can win without directly fighting him. The ending is pretty fun.
You haven't won here. You and your muty bastard friends are gonna join me in a big ol' mushroom cloud send-off. I just triggered the self-destruct. The work will go on. You didn't do nothing here except seal your own death warrants. Duty. Honor. Courage. Semper Fi.
The oil rig maps can be approached in quite a few different ways, but you can join the Enclave like you could join the Master in the original game. That's reasonable because, lore-wise, the Enclave doesn't accept new members, you are simply born into it. While I perfectly accept this, it was a bit of a pity that even when playing an evil character, you are somewhat forced to save your people and be the hero you didn't want to be. In this short version of the Fallout 2 main story, you may notice that the middle part is missing. That's because there isn't a lot of main story in the majority of the game. Most of your time you wander the wasteland looking for the GEC, saving people and settlements or condemning them. Fallout 2 shines in its side quests, which you can most often approach in different ways and choose how to end them. I am just going to talk about a few of them that really stuck with me. One of my favorites was the Vault City Gecko struggle. Vault City is a successful settlement born from Vault 8. They used the GEC they had and thrived, but they now have an energy problem and are keeping all outsiders packed in a slum city outside their walls. Essentially, they created super comfortable people, the citizens, and a whole load of desperates coming to the city looking for work and protection. The situation has escalated so much that citizens are now really privileged and very wary of outsiders because they feel threatened by them, to the point of being utterly classist, abusing them, and leaving them to die outside their walls. Very near Vault City, there's Gecko, a ghoul town where we find Harold again. These guys have a functioning reactor, but are not very good at maintaining it, and are poisoning the underground water that Vault City uses. Those two cities have a problem you can fix. You can circumvent Vault City's first citizen Lynette, who is very mean and aggressive, and wants the ghouls simply gone. You can talk to another member of the council, who is more amenable and just wants the water problem solved. You can destroy the ghouls, blow up the reactor, but that will lead to an even worse pollution problem, or act as a diplomatic messenger. You can convince McClure, the other councilman, to give a reactor piece to the ghouls, fix their reactor, and even make an agreement between the two settlements. Vault City will deliver medical supplies to Gecko in exchange for them sharing their reactor power. Everybody wins, but don't tell Lynette. A location I love and hate at the same time is New Reno. Its quests are generally good, and it's the bad guys' center. If you're doing an evil run, here you'll find a ton of missions to perform for 3 out of 4 mob families. One of them is not so bad. Essentially, it's just a huge redneck moonshiners family, and the one you'll stick to if you're not evil. There's a high chance you'll end up murder hoboing quite a few of these families and their goons, especially if you sleep with Bishop's wife and daughter, or if you perform a hit for one family on the head of another, like killing an old and sick patriarch by taking away his oxygen tank. If you go the unarmed route, there is also a nice chain of matches in a boxing gym that ends up with a fight against Holyfield and then the Masticator. This is one of the prime examples of how this game throws Easter eggs and pop culture puns at you. It was published in 1998, and the infamous Tyson-Holyfield match was from 1997. There is also an adult movie production studio, so to speak, called the Golden Globes. It has ropes, robes, rubber dolls, you name it. You can try to become a star if you have the prerequisites. I say that I love and hate this place because it has a ton of quests, some of them lore-related and interesting to me, and at the same time, it's silly Easter egg central and somewhat out of place. It can also easily bug and soft-lock you out of some of them. The last quests I'm going to mention are the New California Republic ones. I liked them because they are generally tied to the main story in one way or another, and it's interesting to see what became of Shady Sands 80 years later and meeting Tandy again. It's also somewhat a missed opportunity for me because this place is supposedly the capital of what is essentially a new state pushing north, and it would have been an excellent quest hub, but it's not. It could have been a fantastic place to accept some missions from different people and drive to all the other settlements working for good or evil. There's a little of this feeling in there, with this underlying sense of a push to annex other towns to expand. To be honest, you'll see the result of your actions for NCR expansion in the ending slides, but I felt the active content related to this location was too little and a sort of missed opportunity. But maybe it's because I like NCR and I'm biased. I wanted more related content. As with the first Fallout, this one is not exempt from issues with its ending slides. The game presents the results of your actions after defeating the Enclave at the Holy Ring, but not every ending works as intended. Some depend on counters that don't function correctly, such as the New Reno endings, others are simply bugged and don't appear. There were also a few endings that were voice recorded but never made it into the game release, such as President Richardson's ending. Overall, it's not that bad. Fallout 2 succeeds in making you feel that your actions count for something, especially in the NCR and Vault City Gecko story arcs or regarding the Vault's fates. An interesting outcome is that you may have a son if you slept with any of Bishop's women and didn't have a condom in your inventory. Now you know why those items are in the game. That son will grow up and try to do things, never knowing who his father was. Fallout 2 has loads of companions. Not counting the temporary ones, you may recruit 14 of them. Not all of them are useful, such as the wife or husband you get from a shotgun marriage, the pariah dog, or the robo-brain, if you don't have a high enough science skill to obtain the best version of it. Seriously, some of these companions are there to irk you, cannot be dismissed, and you end up either killing them or having the enemies do the job for you. You can also sell the human ones into slavery or make them have sex with others for profit. This game is savage. There are also companions that are so bad in combat that you'll most likely dismiss them as soon as you can. Lenny does absolutely nothing. He's supposed to be a doctor, but he doesn't heal you. Vic and Myron use their repair or science skills in your place, if they're higher than yours, but sooner or later you'll outperform them through books. Myron is also super annoying and a creep. Others are fine, like Sulik, Cassidy, Marcus, and Goris, and some of them are also unique characters that are really interesting lore-wise. I already mentioned this in the combat section, but while options you can set for their combat behavior have been implemented, they'll end up shooting and bursting each other to death. Sometimes they even stay put, kind of stuck, and do nothing during combat. I think it happens when there is some kind of weird combination of combat behavior settings. So, companions are a mixed bag for me. Running solo was way smoother. Also, some of them have a talking head and are voice acted, like Sulik, Marcus, or Myron, while others do not. That was a pity. Visually, the game is almost exactly the same as the first one. The palette consists mainly of brown, yellow, and black, with a splash of bright colors for items like the Vault 13 jumpsuit or Raider's hair. White, light green, or light blue are present only in the clean spaces you can find, such as the vaults, the Sierra Army Depot, or the She Lab. The real difference that struck me was that Fallout 2 includes exterior maps that are not in disrepair or destroyed, like Vault City and Shady Sands. These areas are clean, organized, and even feature flourishing gardens, all achieved at a cost. The dialogue interface is the same as in Fallout, and that bartering and looting UI that gave me nightmares is still there. They attempted to improve it by allowing you to exchange much larger amounts of money. Fun fact, this game uses money, not caps, and added a take-all button for looting, which was much needed. I really missed having a balance offer option to even out the value of what you're selling or buying with each other's money, without having to do it manually every single time. As for the visuals, sounds make use of many assets from the first game, which is not necessarily a bad thing. A large portion of the soundtrack consists of pieces from the original Fallout, composed by Mark Morgan, which were great. However, they added some new tracks as well, such as the Vault City soundtrack, which I really liked a lot. Voice acting is present in a moderate amount, I'd say. Some important NPCs are voiced, and voiced well for that matter, but there is a strange contrast within your companions group. Some of them are voice acted, while others are not, as I said.
We be here. We and I be glad to answer. We're there. Grampy Bones say we might find Sis with you.
What? Yeah? What? Right. Me and my deputies will take it from here, and thanks. I don't forget things like this.
Welcome to Camp Navarro. So you're the replacement. What's your name, Private? What was that? Did you forget something, Maggot? I am not his sir! I work for a living, you moron! You will call me Sergeant, or Sergeant Dornan! Do you understand me?
Just to name a couple actors, we have Ron Perlman as the narrator again, and Michael Dorn provided his voice to Frank Horrigan and Marcus. To finally put my thoughts together about Fallout 2, I'll say that this game gave me an hard time the first time I played it, years ago. I found it confusing and really hard, especially in the early game. It came out the same year as the original Baldur's Gate, and I found the latter much clearer in its mechanics and questing system. But, not giving up on it, I ended up loving it. I really enjoyed how open the game was to exploring at your own pace, running from bad encounters, and whispering what to do next if you paid enough attention, without railroading you too much. I genuinely think this game shines not in its main quest, at least not until you face the Enclave, but through its secondary missions that immerse you in the wasteland and in the communities that sprouted after the destruction. I love when a faction, even just a tiny one like a very small town trying to survive, is portrayed with a theme, and everyone in that community engages with that theme in a different way. They're not all clones, so to speak. They're still humans, good, bad, mostly just trying to get by. That makes the setting more believable in my eyes. Sadly, this is somewhat diminished by an excessive amount of Easter eggs and puns. The cultural references are over the top, and sometimes they ruin the atmosphere. It's true that the first Fallout also had its jokes, like meeting the TARDIS in the wasteland, but here it's too much. They really break the immersion at times. And while this game is great in its portrayal of the wasteland, there are instances in which it feels disconnected. I felt, from time to time, a lack of general cohesion in the themes, mechanics, and assets presented. Don't get me wrong, I don't think there was no coordination between the teams or that the studio didn't know what it was doing. It's just probably a result of developing a game in less than a year and under constant crunch. Fallout 2 is another seminal game that, in my opinion, every CRPG enthusiast or Fallout fan should play. It's true it didn't age very well in some aspects, and if you find yourself stuck, there's no shame in looking for a guide. There is a comprehensive, nearly ultimate Fallout guide replicated on various sites, including the wiki. Google it if you're stuck. You'll be surprised at how many different interactions they put in this game. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe. It helps me reach more RPG enthusiasts around the world. Regardless, thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it. As always, take care of yourself and see you in the next RPG video.